Good day everyone, my name is Mark Justin T. Salazar. For today's video, I'm going to review and explain the meaning of Rule 1 up to Rule 38. Rule 1. Application. Rule 1 states that the rules apply to all vessels upon the high seas and all waters connected to the high seas and navigable by sea-going vessels. Rule 2. Responsibility. Rule 2 covers the responsibility of the master, owner, and crew to comply with the rules. Rule 3. General definition. Meaning, here a vessel not under command means any vessel, which because of some reason cannot keep out of the way of the other vessel. Rule 4. Application. Rules in this section apply to any condition of visibility. Rule 5. Lookout. Rule 5 requires that every vessel shall at all times maintain a proper lookout by sight and hearing, as well as by all available means, appropriate in prevailing circumstances and conditions, so as to make a full appraisal of the situation and of the risk of collision. Rule 6. Safe speed. Every vessel shall at all times proceed at a safe speed, so that she can take a proper and effective action to avoid collision, and be stopped with a distance appropriate to the prevailing circumstances and condition. Rule 7. Risk of collision. Every vessel shall use all available means appropriate to the prevailing circumstances and conditions to determine if risk of collisions exist. If there is any doubt, such risk shall be deemed to exist. Rule 8. Action to avoid collision. As you identify a risk of collision, you must identify the correct action to avoid collision to ensure the vessel will pass at a safe distance. You should then take the action to avoid collision as soon as it is appropriate to do so. Rule 9. Narrow channel. A vessel proceeding along the course of a narrow channel or fairway shall keep as near to the outer limit of the channel or fairway which lies on her starboard side as safe as practicable. Rule 10. Traffic Separation Scheme. Rule 10 states that ships crossing traffic lane are required to do so as nearly as practicable at right angles to the general direction of traffic flow. This reduces confusion to other ships as to crossing vessels' intention and course, and at the same time enable the vessels to cross the lane as quickly as possible. Rule 11. Application. Rule 11 says that the section applies to the vessels in sight of Rule 1 of sight of one another. Rule 12 states that action to be taken when two sailing vessels are approaching in one another. Rule 13 covers overtaking. The overtaking vessels should keep out of the way of the other vessel being overtaken. Rule 12. Sailing vessel. When two sailing vessels are approaching one another, so as to involve risk of collision, every vessel shall use all available means appropriate to prevailing circumstances and conditions to determine if risk of collision exists. Rule 13. Overtaking. Coleridge's Rule 13 governs overtaking situation and states that any vessel overtaking any other shall keep out of the way of the other vessel being overtaken. These rules apply to vessels, not just power-driven vessels, as is the case in crossing and head-on situation. Rule 14. Head-on situation. When two power-driven vessels are meeting in reciprocal or nearly reciprocal courses so as to involve risk of collision, each shall alter her course to starboard so that each shall pass on the port side of the other. Rule 15. Crossing situation. Coleridge's Rule 15 governs crossing situations and state that when two power-driven vessels are crossing, so as to involve risk of collision, the vessel which has the other on her own starboard side shall keep out of the way of the other, and shall, if the circumstances of the case admit, avoid crossing ahead of the other vessel. Rule 16. Action by give-way vessel. Every vessel which direct to keep out of the way of the other vessel, so far as possible, take early and substantial action to keep well clear. Rule 17. Action by stand-on vessel. Rule 17 deals with the action of the stand-on vessel, including the provision that the stand-on vessels may take action to avoid collision by her maneuver alone as soon as it becomes apparent to her that the vessel required to keep out of the way is not taking appropriate action. Rule 18. Responsibilities between vessels. Rule 18 deals with responsibilities between vessels and includes requirements for vessels which shall keep out of the way of the others. Rule 19 states every vessel should proceed at a safe speed adapted to prevailing circumstances and restricted visibilities. Rule 19. Conduct of vessels in restricted visibility. Rule 19 states every vessel should proceed at a safe speed adapted to prevailing circumstances and restricted visibility. A vessel detecting by radar another vessel should determine if there is a risk of collision and if so, take avoiding action. Rule 20. Application. Every vessel shall at all times maintain a proper lookout by sight and hearing as well as by all available means appropriate in prevailing circumstances and conditions so as to make a full appraisal of the situation and of the risk of collision. Rule 12. Definition. Side light means a green light on the starboard side and a red light on the port side, each showing an unbroken light over an arc of the horizon of 112.5 degrees and so fixed as to show the lights from the right ahead to 22.5 degrees above the beam on its respective side. Rule 12. Visibility of lights. The lights prescribed in these rules shall have an intensity as specified in Section 8, Annex 1 to this regulation so as to be visible at the following minimum range. A vessel of 500 meters or more in length, a masthead light. Rule 23. Power-driven vessel underway. A second masthead light abaft of and higher than the forward one, except that a vessel of less than 50 meters in length shall not be obliged to exhibit such light but may do so. Side lights, a stern light. Rule 24. Towing and pushing. A vessel being pushed ahead, not being part of the composite unit, shall exhibit at the forward end side lights. A vessel being towed alongside shall exhibit a stern light and at the forward end a side light. Rule 25. Sailing vessel underway and vessel under oars. Rules in this section apply to any condition of visibility. Rule 26. Fishing vessel. A vessel engaged in fishing, a moor whether underway. The word underway means that a vessel is not an anchor or made fast to the shore, or aground or at anchor, shall exhibit only the lights and shape prescribed in this rule. Rule 27. Vessels not under command or restricted in ability to maneuver, 3 all-round lights and vertical lane where they can best be seen. The highest and lowest of these lights shall be red, and the middle light shall be white. A rigid replica of the International Code Flag A, not less than 1 meter in height, measures shall be taken to ensure its all-round visibility. Rule 28. Vessels constrained by their drought. A vessel constrained by their drought may, in addition to the lights prescribed for a power-driven vessel, more in Rule 23, exhibit where they can best be seen 3 all-round lights in a vertical line or a cylinder. Rule 29. Pilot vessel. When at anchor, in addition to the lights prescribed in subparagraph 1, the lights or shape prescribed in Rule 30 for vessel at anchor, a pilot vessel when not engaged in pilotage duty shall exhibit the lights or shapes prescribed in similar vessels of her length. Rule 30. Anchored vessels and vessels aground. A vessel at anchor shall exhibit where it can best be seen. In the forepart, an all-round white light or one ball. At or near the stern and at the lowest level than the lights prescribed in subparagraph 1, an all-round white light. Rule 31. Seaplanes. Where it is impracticable for a seaplane to exhibit lights and shapes of the characteristics or in the positions prescribed in the rules of this part, she shall exhibit lights and shapes as closely similar in characteristics and position as is possible. Rule 32. Definitions. Rule 32 gives definition of vessels, short blast and prolonged blast. Rule 33 says, vessel 12 meters or more in length should carry a whistle and bell, and vessel 100 meters or more in length should carry an addition of a gong. Rule 34. Rule 34 covers a maneuvering and warning signals using a whistle or lights. Rule 35. Sound signals in restricted visibility. In or near an area restricted in visibility, whether by day or night, the signal prescribed in these rules shall be used as follows. A power-driven vessel making way through the water shall sound at intervals of not more than 2 minutes one prolonged blast. Rule 36. Signals to attract attention. Any lights to attract the attention of another vessel shall be such that it cannot be mistaken for any aid to navigation. For the purpose of this rule, the use of high-intensity intermittent or revolving lights such as strobe lights shall be avoided. Rule 38. Distress signal. When a vessel is in distress and requires assistance, she shall use or exhibit the signals prescribed in Annex 4 to this regulation. And lastly, Rule 38. Exemptions. Rule 38 says ships which comply with the 1960s collision regulation and were built or already under construction when the 1972 collision regulation entered into force may be exempted for some requirements for lights and sound signals for specified periods.